Okay, hi and assalamualaikum and a very good Monday. Welcome to our live sharing pada hari ini yang berbeza sedikit. Today's session is not so much a Q&A kurangkan berat badan, which we normally do on Mondays on my Facebook dan YouTube. But hari ini adalah a live sharing session berkenaan dengan my experience on 9/11 when I was a student DC2. But before we get started, I'm going to just allow everyone to get on board with our live session pada hari ini. Yeah, so if you are watching me on Facebook, Assalamualaikum and a very good evening kepada anda semua. And let me know sekiranya anda boleh mendengar saya dengan jelas. Yeah, just comment down if you can hear me loud and clear. Can you hear me loud and clear? Yeah, just let me know dalam ruangan komen sebelum I start to membebel for our live sharing pada hari ini supaya again you can hear and see me pada hari ini. Yeah, hi, yeah, very good evening. I'm gonna read out some names. Yeah, we have Omar di sini, we have Gary, we have Shaziana. If I'm looking over here, this is where my screen is. I'm going to try and drag it a little bit closer to the camera. But yeah, my screen is over here. And I'll be looking at the comments over here. So now, yeah, very good evening, Azizi, Omar, Marina from YouTube, and Gary, Shaziana. Yeah, welcome to our live sharing session pada malam ini. Again, today is not Q&A kurus. Today is a live sharing session about my personal 9/11 experience, which happened 20 years ago sudah. And it's just something that I felt is quite interesting to share perspective bagi mereka yang perhaps were not old enough during that time to really understand what was going on, and perhaps you were not in the US to sendiri. So I am going to just share my experiences dalam tiga segmen. Segmen yang pertama is just to share with you what actually happened from my point of view on September 11th, 2001 when I was in Boston masa itu. Then secondly, I will share my experience with Islamophobia, which is more post 9/11 in Boston as well. And number three, very interestingly, I will share my experience when I was a suspect terrorist, interrogated by the FBI, the police. I was held for not long, but I will go into more details nanti. Also a very interesting experience to share as well. So, but if you have any soalan along my perkongsian, feel free to share those questions dalam ruangan komen yang disediakan, and help me share this session juga dengan kawan-kawan, especially on Facebook, if you feel this is something that is interesting and relevant for them to perhaps join bersama. So audio is very clear. Thank you very much. So let's get going. And welcome to my live sharing pada hari ini. A bit different. And I am going to share my 9/11 pengalaman, which happened 20 years ago. And it is something yang still very not close to my heart, but it's something that I was there, and it's different berpengalaman dengan anda di sana versus perhaps watching from around the world. So let's begin. So I was let's start dengan part number one. My actual 9/11 experience. And I was in the US pada ketika itu, 2001. I was a student. I was studying mechanical engineering. I was a proton scholar. And I was in the US from 1997 until 2002. So on September 11th, I had my internship. I was working at a company called Berry Controls in Boston. And basically, long story short, it is a engineering company that supplies hot water to hospitals and sebagainya. And on the morning, on the 9th of September, I was at my job at an internship there in Boston. And I remember this very, very vividly because it's a quite traumatic event. Walaupun you are not in New York at the time, but we were very close. New York and Boston is about a 4 or 5 hour car ride away. And I remember the first thing my boss came into our intern space and told us America is under attack. Yeah, this is around 9 o'clock in the morning when it happened. And he said, America is under attack. And he was very panicky. Nobody knew at the time really what was going on. I mean, you know now, looking back, what happened. But when it happens during that moment, you don't know. So all we heard was America's under attack. And what we thought America is actually being invaded with tanks and soldiers and fighter jets flying over. Because that's what, when somebody says America under attack, that's what you imagine, war. So we all rushed to the next available television, which was downstairs in the main common area of the office. And all we saw was the World Trade Center. As you all know now, the first tower was hit. By that time, it was not yet sure. And then it's also known at the time that the Pentagon had been attacked by a second plane. So rumors at the time were macam-macam. Rumors were there were 14, 15, 16, 17, 20 planes still in the air and about to hit respective targets. So there was a lot of unknowns. And you don't know whether this is just the beginning or this is going to be the end. So what we did as interns, we all got together, and one of our friends who had a car, we decided to leave Boston because we heard that the terrorists who flew the plane, in that particular one plane, was departing out of Boston. And there were rumors, because there were so many rumors in the morning, there were rumors that there might be a nuclear bomb in Boston. You know, very scary stuff. And the first thought I had is we have to leave. We have to leave Boston. We have to just get out of the city, not knowing what is going to happen. So we all left in a car and we drove to the countryside, which is maybe like an hour or so away. And of course, calling your parents. I called my parents here in Malaysia just to let them know that we are safe. But we did not dare to return to Boston until later that night when things sort of calmed down. So I don't want to go into too much detail of the attack itself because everybody knows. Extremely shocking. And for the next few days, when you were in Boston, in my case, again, then you did not quite feel safe. And because you don't quite know, is this really over? And it was a surreal feeling of looking at a sky that had no planes in it for, as far as I remember, a few days or maybe a week or two. So that was really my 9/11 experience. When we were there, a moment that really still stands out in my mind. And now let me get to part two. Yeah, part two. And again, feel free to ask me questions. Here, one question here from Anwar, from Facebook, asking, how does the community and community leaders themselves deal with the issue? How do they stay united and with diverse ethnics internally, and how to act externally? Now, the thing you have to know about the US, when I was there, everything that you see on TV and what is going on over there is pretty much the same thing about the police and whatever. Culturally, it's generally about the same as what you see on TV. And what I remember very vividly now, this just goes to part two, which deals with Islamophobia. Now, before I talk about Islamophobia in the USA, you have to imagine this is 2001, where the world is not as small and interconnected yet as it is now. It was already, because the internet was already starting for a few years, but it is not as interconnected and as perhaps as global as it might be now in 2021. So Americans are, if I may use a very simple word, rather ignorant when it comes to the rest of the world. Why? Because America is so big. You have to imagine, yeah, it's such a huge country with so many big states, big cities, Los Angeles, Chicago, San Diego, New York, Washington, Boston. There's so many big cities, so many cities bigger than even Kuala Lumpur. And there's so much going on in just one state. When you watch TV, like TV3, in my case in Boston, most of the news is just what's happening in Boston or in Massachusetts. There's so much news just from this one state that even the local news does not cover the entire US in terms of all the news. It's too much. So for the average American, most of the news that they hear is local news from, in this case, Boston and Massachusetts, and you will get some news from here and there and some global events. But generally, Americans are occupied with really just what is going on in their own world, and it's a lot. And they are not very concerned at the time or in general about everything that's going on in the world, let alone perhaps in this case agama orang lain. Yeah, so it was very interesting. I as a Muslim, you can feel threatened by the sudden rise or surge of Islamophobia. But pada masa yang sama, it gives you peluang to menerangkan kepada your fellow American friends what is Islam, what is jihad. Now, jihad was a word a lot of people asked me because they knew I was a Muslim. And they asked me, what is jihad? Because jihad is how the media sort of explain this is the motive of the terrorists to then jihad for their religion, to have a one-way ticket to shurga, to heaven. So it was very challenging, but very interesting to have an intellectual discussion to help make a person that doesn't know anything about Islam to understand what we represent, what is jihad, and how it is disalahgunakan. And the perumpamaan that I always used during the discussion was that, imagine I'm talking to a fellow American right now. And what they have to understand juga is that the world is not all like the US. There is war going on in lots of poor, uneducated countries. Could be Iran, Afghanistan, or other countries where there is oppression. And the oppression is sometimes, or in many cases, caused by foreign powers, which includes the United States. So I always tell them, if I had a family that was bombed by an American missile and destroyed my home and killed my relatives, I will be angry. Whether it was done in peace or in goodwill, I don't care. I am a byproduct of the war that you are part of in my country. And if so happens that I am a victim of the circumstances, I'll be angry. And I want to then somehow rise to the occasion and pay back. So again, then when there are Islamic jihadists or Al Qaeda come on board and then they pull me in and then they provide me with education that I never had before, because again, this is not an educated person that perhaps you are guiding along the way, but these are a lot of people who have been oppressed and suddenly been given a path to follow, which makes it not say easy, but makes it something that's very powerful for a person that kadang-kadang doesn't have perspective yang berbeza. So for them it is jihad, but it does not mean that everyone in Islam represents that same ideology. And it was interesting. So now, did I deal with Islamophobia myself? Not really. If there was instances where people said something that was not correct, I would tell them in a way that it's not, being angry. Are you angry? I am angry. It does not work. So when it came to Islamophobia, there wasn't really something that was something I would call off as something that rubbed me the wrong way. I had a lot more of racism issues that I dealt with growing up in Germany. Had nothing to do with Islamophobia in the sense, but more of being a racist subject growing up in Germany. That was probably more damaging. I have encountered racism in the US as well. I've encountered racism in Malaysia juga. So it's not something that is just something that happens in one country or another. Happens in Malaysia just as well. Islamophobia, a lot of it became out of fear. Because orang takut and tidak memahami sesuatu. So a lot of these phobias come from things that you do not understand, things that you do not know, but it gave me the opportunity as a person yang beragama Islam, bukanlah I tahu segala-galanya, but at least fundamentally dapat explain it to, in this case, the average American that I was friends with, and B, dapat, introduce Islam to them through just being a friend of mine, secara langsung dan tak langsung, supaya mereka dapat gambaran, sudut yang berbeza, or it's not just what they see on TV, because TV and media always mempermainkan keadaan. Very simple example, when I was in the US, post 9/11, you saw pictures of American flags being burned in the news from Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur. And I was telling them, in the media, it looks like the entire country, Malaysia, is protesting and boycotting against you. But these are just 10 people that are standing in a dataran ke apa, that are burning your flag after Friday prayer ke apa. Same thing in Jakarta, but it's not like the whole country is now going up and against the US just because of 9/11. So the media plays a really funky role dalam mempermainkan keadaan on dua side. So again, it was good for someone like me who knows life in Malaysia, has been to the Middle East, has been to the US, to show them perspective yang berbeza-beza. So yeah, so if you have any questions about those things, let me know juga. Yeah, within 1 week, US attacked and bombing Afghanistan until flattened. War will never end. I'm not an expert on war per se, but there's always two sides to the coin. If you watch the recent documentary on the sejarah pre-9/11 of Afghanistan and the Soviet war during the Cold War in the 80s, and how the US helped, it's all about kepentingan diri at the end of the day. If there was no kepentingan diri, no country would want to be part of a war in a foreign country juga. Okay, now let me bring you to my third part, which probably is the most interesting or not, which is the day I was a suspect terrorist. And the date is not wrong. The date is correct. Actually, the date is not correct. Let me change the date. The date is... Let me change it. 02. Okay. Part 3 is 9/11 2002. Now, if you just joined us, welcome to our live sharing session. Today is all about 9/11. Why? Because I was in the US, in Boston during those times. And if you're asking me, why don't I comment about Gaza or other things? Because I was never there. It's hard to comment on something that you only see from far. And I'm just commenting on this, not because I'm on favor or in favor of mana-mana party or bahagian. It's just something that I personally have experienced. And I generally don't like to talk about things that are not part of my genre per se. Okay, so 9/11, 2002, 1 year after the bombing of 9/11, 2001, I graduated from university. So I graduated in the US, 2002. after 5 years engineering. Yeah, I'm a mechanical engineer by profession, with a minor in economics. Don't ask me where the fitness all came in. Now I call it body engineering, but I am a engineering by medical and by academic certification. And I graduated 2002, and I figured, because there was a sense of fear of flying. I have general sense of fear of flying anyways. But I felt the best time to travel back to Malaysia is September 11th, 2002. Because who in the world would want to do anything on the anniversary of 9/11? Because that's when security would be, at its peak. And I want security to be at its peak because I want to feel safe, and I got nothing to hide, and I don't want to do anything. So after lots of goodbyes with friends and whatnot in the US, I made my way to the airport on 9/11, 2002. And I expected security to be tight. I expected myself to be, called out from a line because I'm a Muslim, I have a Malaysian passport, I'm a student. I fit the profile of a random selection that you want to pull out and just search thoroughly. So I was very well prepared for that. I booked the ticket from Boston to London, and again, got nothing to hide. So there were several security checks, nothing unusual. And just before boarding the plane, I was randomly selected, which again, I expect. And if I were in their shoes, I would pick me as well, just to be sure. It is, you can call it racist, you can call it racial discrimination. But if you are in their shoes, you probably do the same thing juga demi keselamatan negara kau. So I was called to the side, and a stewardess was going through my carry-on luggage and took everything out, one thing at a time, And I had a sajadah in my carry-on out of respect, and nak semayang dekat airport ke apa. And I had a Quran in my carry-on as well, which again is out of respect. Just like perhaps somebody who is Christian would carry a Bible in their carry-on juga out of respect. So she took out the Quran, fine. She took out the sajadah from the carry-on, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So then she took out my toiletry bag, and she looked at all the compartments. And in one of the compartments, many years ago, or 2-3 years ago, I put a hunter's knife in it. There was a hunter's knife in my toiletry bag, which I totally forgot I put it there. And in my mind, I was screaming like, "Oh my God, I have a hunter's knife in my carry-on." And now this lady is looking at a 22-year-old Muslim student on a one-way ticket out of Boston with a Quran, a sajadah, and a hunter's knife in front of her. And she was totally calm. And I told her how I understand how this must look. And I was very apologetic, but she did not seem to make a big deal out of it. She seemed very calm and did not raise any alarms. But then she asked me to wait, and she got her colleague to come, and who then brought the Boston police. So the Boston police looked at it as well, very calmly, and asked me to follow them. They looked at my passport, my boarding pass, and they asked me to follow them into a room. Then they asked me a bunch of questions, and then they told me that they have to hand me over to the FBI because this is out of their jurisdiction. So I was in a room waiting for FBI agents to come. And they came, again, very calmly, very professionally, not intimidating or any kind of waterboarding tactics, no such thing. And they asked me a lot of questions about my purpose in the US, my motive of going back, why was there a knife in my carry-on, and so forth. And I was not trying to talk too much, but just answer their questions very specifically and non-threateningly, and hope that they do their job without perhaps jumping to conclusion. But in my mind, because you start hearing about Guantanamo Bay and a lot of these not by the book tactics. So in my mind, I was thinking like, oh my God, what are they going to do to me? Because they might just be sure this guy is not going to do anything, just lock him up for a while, just to be sure nothing happens. So they asked me to wait for a while. I wasn't handcuffed or anything, but I wasn't allowed to leave the room. I was told there's no way I will be able to board the plane, and they would have to check and see what to do next. So they left. They left the room and came back. I'm not sure how much later. It was not too long. I was texting my friends just to let them know that something happened, and just to come and stand by to pick me up again. And then they came back. The FBI came back into the room, which wasn't really a cell. It's just a room where you could not leave. It's just a white room that even you might see on TV as well. Just an interrogation room. It was two agents, and they came back and they told me that I am not on a terrorist wanted list. And I'm like, thank God, I'm not on any list. Why would I be? But I did not say why would I be. I just said, yes, I'm not a terrorist. This was just a dumb mistake. I'm very unfortunate, but yes, I am not a terrorist and I should not be on any list. So what they then told me that I am allowed to leave, but not allowed to board the plane today. So then the airline came then next and allowed to rebook the flight for tomorrow. Now, story doesn't end here. So then I had to call my friend, and we could have laughed at it, but I was scared because what if they just want to be sure and just sniper me on the way back to my friend's place just to be sure this guy has no alternative motive. Yeah. Did they play good cop, bad cop? No, I was not a suspect criminal, and nothing really for them to put anything on me to make me deal with the good cop, bad cop. Everything was very professional. So we went back to my friend's place. We turned on the TV just to wait for security breach at Boston Logan Airport, but there was none. So as the day unfolded, we all sort of laughed it off, but I was fearful inside. And if on September 11th, 2002, I was leaving the US feeling sad, on the following day, I was a bit menyampa already because of, it's my own fault, fine. But I was just ready to go. I want to go home. And when I arrived at the airport the next day, it's just the same flight, Boston to London. I was immediately at arrival to the airport greeted by police. Yeah, immediately handed over from my friend, and the police were waiting at the check-in counter for me. And I had an escort all the way from check-in through all the security up until I boarded the plane. I'm assuming just to be sure I don't meet anyone at the airport who's going to hand me something else to then do whatever. And there was a guy there who worked the counter the previous day and the same day, who works for the airline. And he looked at he was my age, very young guy. And he looked at my boarding pass while we were going through security with the police. And he told me, this marking on your boarding pass means that you are a very, very suspicious person. Which, okay, fine. If I were them juga, I would have done the same thing. So I was a very, very suspicious person and escorted with police through all the security. You can imagine all the eyes on me and what they must be thinking. Now, you're watching this, I might not look Middle Eastern to everyone, but for an American, I don't look American either. And profiling wise, I probably fit into the Middle Eastern demographic appearance. So, long story short, guarded, escorted to the gate, handed over to the by the police to the head steward, who put me or asked me to sit down at the side first, let everyone board, and then only will I be allowed to board the plane. And of course, they went through all my luggage, which of course I checked 4 or 5 times. They went through my carry-on. Everything was good, and then I was very pleasantly, yeah, asked by the head steward whether everything was okay, whether I was treated fairly, and whether I am feeling fine. And I told him everything was fine, which is okay. I expected the protocol to be what it was. And then I boarded the plane, and I was the last person to board the plane, handed over by the police to the cockpit or plane crew. And as you can imagine, all eyes are on me as a person like, oh no, who is this guy and why is he being treated so differently? I'm sure they all must have thought that I am a terrorist or something must be wrong with me. So then I was told, for my comfort, I'll be given a middle aisle all to myself. This was a Boeing maybe 767 with a middle aisle with 4 seats, and the row was given all to myself initially, or so I thought. But then after about 5 minutes, there was another gentleman who was placed at the other end of my aisle, my middle row. And I am sure he was a marshal for the airplane. I didn't talk to him at all. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't ask for any orange juice for the entire flight. I didn't sleep. I didn't go to the toilet. I just sat down on my seat for the 5-6 hour flight from Boston to London. And as we landed in London, I assumed that the US security or agents and whatnot would have communicated something to London. And I was expecting there to be some kind of handover to, I don't know, airport police or somebody else. But there was none. I was just allowed to roam freely in London. I thought that maybe they assume, it's your problem now, UK, deal with it. Our job is done. And I was just let go and connected to my next flight, which was a Malaysian Airlines flight from London to KL. Yeah, so that really was my experience with 9/11, with Islamophobia, and being a suspect terrorist with the FBI. I have not yet tried to re-enter the United States. It's been 20 years. I am assuming that if I do apply for a visa to go back to just visit for whatever reason, that I might not be allowed to, just to be sure, or there might not be a record at all. But if I were them, I would still mark this person as a potential suspect just because of a security breach. Dumbly, yeah, my fault, obviously, at Logan Airport on the anniversary of 9/11. So all in all, experience might be unpleasant, but everyone I dealt with, from the airline to the airport staff to the Boston Airport Police, because they have police for every different things. They have even university police, and including the FBI, everybody dealt with the issue extremely professionally without jumping to conclusions or making rash decisions. So I overall felt that, all things considered, with the hunting knife of all things, and gotten as far as the gate. And I was telling the police as well, and they were even surprised, how did this knife get through all the security checks? And there were about 2 for carry-ons, and the third one at the actual gate. How did the knife actually get all the way to the gate? And I don't know. It's just, it's been there for years, and it should have been perhaps appearing in the scans throughout the airport, but there was none. So yeah, that's my experience with 9/11, my experience with Islamophobia, and my experience with the FBI. All things considered, still here, and I am sure there are many of others who have experience as well. I saw my friend who was at the same university as I posted his sharing on Facebook on the 9th, on the 11th of September, 2 days ago. And also very interesting because everyone's story is different. And even though we were not in New York, the fact that you did not know how spread out it would be, or whether Boston would be next. And as I mentioned, there were rumors, and there were so many rumors on the day. There were rumors that there could be a nuclear bomb somewhere, because the bombers flew out of Boston. That made us all feel very unsure and scared about being in Boston itself, and we all fled. And came back later that night once we felt sort of things are true. Sadophobia, yeah. All right. So now, if any one of you has any questions about America, about Islamophobia, my experience growing up, maybe in Germany or Malaysia, even, all I can tell you is that in every country you go to, there are issues with the Islamophobia, racism, corruption, politicians. Not just in Malaysia. You've got politicians issues everywhere in every country, even in the US with Donald Trump juga, and in Canada and in Germany juga. Every country has its issues. The main difference I always feel about Malaysia, Germany, and US is that Malaysia is a very, very small country. So somehow or another, all the issues that we have dalam negara, everyone tends to ambil tahu, everyone tends to masuk campur, and it becomes rojak yang sangat chaotic and meriah, but huru-hara, and can be very stressful because there's so much noise coming in from everywhere, versus other countries like Germany, for example. I grew up, Germany is a very boring country. Yeah, how they play bola is quite boring, but it is systematic and strategic, but orang tak jaga kain orang lain. So I give you an example. Growing up in Germany, sekolah, if I am in sekolah darjah 3A, the only people I know is pelajar darjah 3A. Darjah 3B lalu tangga pun tak kenal, tak tengok, tak nak tahu pun kau apa, kau siapa, is not relevant to me, because culturally in Germany everything is very close, but only dalam, in this case, kelas you, or kalau keluarga, just your nucleus family sahaja. Second cousin semua generally jauh and jarang and tak ambil tahu. Then I came to Malaysia. The difference that here is you in darjah 3A satu hal, 3B kenal, C, D, E, F, G kenal, 4A, 2A, 5F, 6C. Everyone tends to know everyone. Everyone tends to jaga kain semua orang. And meriah, but it is chaotic because it's overwhelming in terms of the information and the noise dan sebagainya dalam negara yang kecil. And I think that trickles over into our politics juga. There's so many noises, so many people, all are in KL, and we are also all in KL, and it is noisy, and sometimes tak nak ambil tahu pun, but sometimes because everyone is talking about it, WhatsApp and all, meriah. So Malaysia is a country very meriah, but it comes in a package deal. And then there are other countries like Germany and the US, which are a bit more culturally different. They are more aku, engkau, tak nak ambil tahu pun pasal orang lain. So hence juga with 9/11, Americans don't really know anything about Islam, don't want to know. Why? Because their country itself is so big already dengan apa yang diorang ada, and it's just tak nak add on more things for them to know without purpose. So Americans are in that sense ignorant about the world. If you ask them to point out where's Malaysia in the map, they probably would not know because dia orang punya negara sendiri punya geography is, as overwhelming as it is, and there's so much going on dalam negara dia sendiri. Kita ada 14 negeri di Malaysia, kan 15 dengan persekutuan and all. They have 50 states. Even I would not know how to remember them all and where they all fit into the puzzle of the United States of America. All right, so I think that's all the sharing really for me. And yeah, if you have any questions about anything, let me answer some questions. How did you get your certificate as coach in the US? Amirul, I again was in the US not to get my certificate in fitness or nutrition. I was in the US to belajar mechanical engineering and economics. But while I was there, because I memang giat aktif sukan, but I kecil, I bertanding dengan orang Amerika, main bola ke susah because they are bigger, taller, and they start, sports training and fitness and nutrition in high school already. So when I arrived in the US, I was very chickading. But I'm an engineer, or I have an engineering mindset. So I started to learn about nutrition, sports science, gym training. I started going to the gym in the US. That's where I started in the university. The most amazing gym until today was my university gym. And I'm not sure if I can show you a picture here. Don't think so. Can I share video file screen? No, cannot. It's okay. Never mind. But basically, the best gym I've been to in my life is still my university gym. It's so big. It's like two stories high, indoor running court, basketball, weight training, dan sebagainya. So I took on my certification in fitness and nutrition while I was in the university for myself. It was not meant to be anything to do dengan nak menjadi personal trainer orang ke jadi cikgu fitness or do anything that I do now. That was not the niat at all. It was just so untuk diri sendiri, untuk kepuasan diri. But yes, I got it in the US during my 4th or 5th year. During those times. Okay. Let me see what else we have here. Just some interesting discussions. Afif, yes, racism in Malaysia is worse too. We call each other Taliban and communists. We follow the wrong politician. In the end, just different ideology lead us to wrong action. Malaysia has its issues with racism, just like any country. And as much as we talk about Muhibah and Bersatu, I don't know. It's not the reality of how we live. I give you an example. And I like to ask a lot of questions. And a good friend of mine, his name is Damien C. I'm not going to say his full name, but we were in the US together. And we had a lot of heart-to-heart discussions about Malaysia and racism. And I asked him, how do you feel? I asked him, how do you feel as a Malaysian that you are being treated as a second-class citizen? Because somehow or another, you tak ada quota untuk scholarship lah yang tak banyak. Kena fight for life to get a scholarship. You ada IC merah. You don't get privilege Bumi Putra. How does it feel for him being a Chinese, a Malaysian, to be treated that way? And he no one likes it. And of course, it's racist. You can say whatever you like about the persekutuan or perlembagaan dan sebagainya or rukun negara and all. It is what it is, but it still does not change the fact that it is racial discrimination. and I'm not saying A, B, or C. All of us racially discriminate somehow or another. Even making a racial discrimination about orang tu bangsa ni maka ABC, that is racist by itself. So, yeah, every country has its issues. We are not any better. And yeah, we should fix our own country first, but I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. I don't know. It's difficult. Even education in Malaysia is weird. I mean, again, I'm just saying this from a person that has been to different countries. Belajar, sekolah rendah in Germany, sekolah menengah dekat Malaysia, university di US. Malaysia has so many schools. It's weird. Sekolah jenis kebangsaan, sekolah jenis Cina and Tamil. You have sekolah agama, sekolah antarabangsa, sekolah private, sekolah yang I don't know, homeschool. It's weird. So even for me, the education itself is racially discriminating and provides a platform for kids not to be united. From sekolah already, they are divided into bangsa agama yang berbeza-beza. So how is that going to change when they become adults? I don't know. So again, just running out of topic today. Maybe sharing yang berbeza. If you know me personally, very opinionated, but I don't like to spill my beans on a public arena because it's not my domain per se. Okay. Can I speak German? Ich bin geboren in Hamburg. Ja, seit 13 Jahren in Hamburg. Meine Mutter ist Deutsch. Habe seit 13 Jahren Deutsch gelernt bis zur 6. Klasse. Meine Kinder lernen auch jetzt Deutsch. Meine zweite Sprache ist Englisch. Und dann später, als wir nach Malaysia gezogen haben, dann erst habe ich Malay gelernt. Ja, so Deutsch ist meine Muttersprache, aber ist nicht mehr so gut, wie es damals dann war. Aber das geht schon doch. Ne, das geht doch noch. So, I do speak German, but it's a bit rusty. But my mother tongue is German. Second tongue is English. And then my third language that I learned along the way is only Malay. But I learned Malay through sekolah biasa. Marina, hearing your life experience, how did you manage to keep it together? Or you do not know my life experience. I have been through many roller coasters in life with bullying and racism and the FBI and sekolah asrama, not knowing how to speak Malay. I remember my first day in sekolah asrama. You have to imagine, yeah, maybe this is going to be a different sharing one day. I came to Malaysia in 91, didn't know any Malay at all, didn't know anything about agama Islam, to be honest. I was never taught anything about Islam. I learned only when I came to Malaysia. I remember my first ujian agama Islam. It was in Jawi or Rumi. Rumi is near. It was in Jawi. And I had no clue. I was staring at the paper for an hour. I don't know what to do, Ustazah. I cannot read it. And she asked me, Chubola. And I was literally just laughing. Because how am I going to try if I cannot even read what I'm supposed to be trying at? So she gave me 5%. Like, I still have the report card somewhere. I can show you next time. I got 5%. And I asked her, why did I get 5%? She said, it's for writing my name. So I said, okay, fine. But I learned. I was never afraid of learning. So you just belajar lah. There's nothing to be ashamed about. And my dad decided for Form 3, let's throw Kevin into a asrama. I don't know why, but to learn about agama, to catch up perhaps on things that I should have learned when I was younger. So I went to Sekolah Sri Perak in Teluk Intan, asrama penuh ya. For me, it was asrama campur sekolah biasa, but in my case, it was asrama penuh, and it was sekolah orang-orang susah. biasanya, and it was meant to teach me about humility of life. And I remember my first day. I remember I remember thinking, why am I here? 2 years ago, I was in Germany. Now I am in a different country. I don't speak the language that well. I don't know anything. I am now being, not say abandoned, but I'm now being, put in this school I don't really belong to. And I remember the first night they had, first day of school, and they had this perimpunan para pelajar asrama dengan dengan warden and all. And it being very Islamic asrama, it's not pondok, but I always say it's semi pondok, because for me it was a huge culture shock from knowing nothing. Suddenly it's 5 times prayer in the mosque. It is tidur dengan kamar 40 orang. It is mandi dengan cebok yang sejuk, ya Allah. And the first night, there was a lot of nyanyian. I don't know how to say it. There was a lot of berzikir, Asmaul Husna, which I know now. But when I was there and standing, and everybody was singing lagu sekolah, lagu negaraku, lagu wawasan, so many songs, and berzikir and all, I had no clue what was going on. I was foreign-looking kid. Everyone came, of course, to me. Why are you here? Kenapa kau kat sini? Again, Form 1, Form 2, everyone wanted to know, why am I here? It was a very exotic experience for them to have some Mak Saleh looking kid suddenly being thrown in their asrama. And I was told by them that before I arrived, I was told, they were told by the warden, kat asrama banyak bully, pukul and all. I was told by my friends at the asrama then that before I came, they were all told not to touch this boy. Yeah, don't bully, no pukul, no ragging. I was not allowed to be touched, and I was not. I was very welcome. I felt, of course, I cried. I think for the first few weeks, I begged my dad to take me back as well. But I adapted. And that's the great thing about us in humans. You throw us in a dark place, you have to learn to survive. And if your life is easy and manja, you don't have urge to grow as a human being. So when you are thrown into these difficult times, difficult places, you grow, hopefully. Now, some people don't make it, fine. I have friends, because after Form 3, I went to MRSM, Form 4. And MRSM felt like a 5-star luxury resort in comparison to what I had to deal with in, with all due respect to Sekolah Sri Perak in Teluk Intan. MRSM felt like a huge step up in terms of comfort, but a lot of other kids were struggling. I was like, this is great, guys. We got chicken every day. We got only 10 people per room. We all got our own. It's great. So I was like, this is amazing. But all the kids that were there, they were struggling because they were not used to it. And me looking back at those times, it allows me now. You throw me like in any negeri pun in Malaysia, I'll be fine. You throw me in the US pun, I'll be fine. You throw me dekat Timur Tengah pun, I'll be fine. You throw me anywhere in the world, I'll be fine. Because again, you have been through stuff. You've been through life. And without going through the pengalaman, you cannot really experience those things by just reading a book. You cannot imagine what 9/11 is like without you actually being there. And I was not in New York, but I have been to New York, and I was very near to where it all happened. And the fear that many of the Americans and people like me who were there felt on the same day were very real. So yeah, my life has lots of ups and downs. I'm a divorced child. I was run away from Germany to go to Malaysia without really having a chance to say goodbye to anyone. I was forced to give up my name. My actual name is not Kevin Zari bin Abdul Ghaffar. I had a German name. I was forced to give that up as well. I was forced to give up my German passport. I was disconnected from my mother. My brother committed suicide. My grandfather committed suicide. I had a lot of issues in my life, but you survive, and you take the good, you take the bad, and you have to cayukkan diri to move through whatever crap that you are going through right now, with the hope that you can finally, find some light at the end of the day. And it might take time. When I went through some dark times, it took me time as well. And the FBI thing is nothing. 9/11 was not something dramatically long. It was acute, short term. But there are many things in life that will drag on you. But perhaps perkongsian untuk hari yang lain. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, today, guys, no. Okay, let me just put this one out real quick, just to say it out. Yeah, just what happened today is not a Kuro session. I want to, if I read this correctly, you were 214 and now you are 98.7. That is super, super amazing. Yeah, Afif, do send me your story. I would love to read about your kisah, and perhaps you and we can do a sesi perkongsian bersama so that you can inspire orang lain juga. Yeah, so just direct message me and I'm sure we can figure something out. Okay. Let me see here. Yeah, quota. Okay. Sad reality. No choice but to live with it. Yeah, it probably goes to the racism in the world, in Malaysia as well. Okay. Yeah, very, very well done, Afif. Yeah, do send me your story, please. Yeah, remember ada pelajar dari negara dipuji bola kau cantik. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that is all for today, and I hope that my perkongsian about 9/11, Islamophobia, and the day I was a suspect terrorist interrogated by the FBI was amusing and something that shines a light on something that you perhaps never experienced yourself. I don't wish it on anyone, obviously, but yeah, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you for all the comments as well. Thank you for joining. And if you're on Facebook, again, do share the live sharing dengan kawan-kawan yang ada. And hey, if you have a topic that you would like me to share about, whether it is on education, on different cultures, perbezaan pendidikan di Germany or in Malaysia, also very interesting as well, I would be very happy to. Always talking about kurus is fine, but yeah, it's also fine to talk about different things, hence we call it bukan soal kurus. Yeah, so dengan itu, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I will be looking at the comments a bit later, and I see you guys again minggu depan, same time, same place, 8 malam, and I wish you guys all the best and safety, and for those of you who are able to re-enter society post-lockdown, national recovery phase number 2, do so vigilantly and do so responsibly supaya our cases do not skyrocket, and stay as safe as possible supaya we can re-enter normal life, if there is such a thing, as soon as possible. Yeah. Assalamualaikum one more time. Salam kurus and have a great night. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.